Read it together. Read page 809, the translation.
O King, as I repeatedly recall this wondrous and holy dialogue between Krishna and Arjuna, I take pleasure being thrilled at every moment.
I take pleasure.
I take pleasure being thrilled at every moment.
Okay, let's go on text 77. Together. Tachchisam smitya rupam atyad bhutam hare vismayo me mahan rajan vishyami cha punah punah. Translation. The next person can read.
O King, when I remember the wonderful form of Lord Krishna, I am struck with even greater wonder and rejoice again and again.
Text 78. Yatra Yogeshvara Krishno Yatra Partho Dunurdaraha Tata Shri Vijayo Bhutir Ruva Nitir Matir Mama. Translation.
Wherever there is Krishna, the master of all mystics, and wherever there is Arjuna, the supreme archer, there will also certainly be opulence, victory, extraordinary power, and morality. That is my opinion.
So we'll speak a little bit on these few verses first. This is the culmination of Bhagavad Gita. The last portion is here. And Arjuna, as Bhagavad Gita is part of Mahabharata, and in the Mahabharata, there's a long history leading up to this battle. Because it wasn't just a sudden thing. It was a very long-term enmity between the members of the Kuru family. And it was brought about primarily by Duryodhana, the son of Dhritarashtra. And Duryodhana wanted to have the rule of the kingdom himself. But the rule was supposed to be given to Pandu's son, because Pandu was the emperor before. Pandu when Pandu died untimely, his son, Yudhishthira, the eldest, should have taken the leadership. Hare Krishna. But because of the intrigues of Duryodhana, in many ways he tried to stop that from happening, and he was successful. But finally it came to the point where he had to face their response. And they were forgiving so much. They forgive Duryodhana's trying to burn down the place they were living. They tolerated Duryodhana's arranging to poison them, put poison in their food. They were cheated in a dice match, gambling dice match. The list goes on and on. And the culmination, or one of the culminating points was they disrespected the wife of the Pandavas. She was not an ordinary woman. She appeared from the sacrificial fire, Draupadi. And because she was sent by the demigods to help the world situation. So she was, it's a long story, but she was one in her Svayamvara. That means in the Vedic culture, when a princess is from a very cultured family, she may be given the opportunity. Hare Krishna. We have a package here. Someone like to receive it? So she's given the opportunity to choose her own husband. Or in some cases, the father arranges a contest to see who is the most qualified to marry his daughter. So in this case, Drupada, the father, he wanted Arjun to marry his daughter. Because Arjun was very virtuous, all good qualities, and also a great warrior. So the father arranged a test that only Arjuna could accomplish. That way he would be sure that his daughter married only Arjuna. There was one thing, though, he didn't know, was that Karna was also a very comparable archer. In fact, he may have been even more competent than Arjuna. But Krishna said, there's only two people who can do this, Arjuna and Karna. So in order to make sure that there was no chance of Karna winning, when his turn came up, he came up to shoot the arrow to see, he had to hit the eye of a wooden fish at the top of the assembly house, and you had to look down and to see the reflection in a pool of water, and you had to shoot. Very difficult task. So when it was Karna's turn, Draupadi said, I don't want any persons who are not at least Kshatriyas, born Kshatriya family. And that excluded Karna because his birth was obscure. It was mysterious. No one knew exactly how he was born. He was obviously something special, but they didn't know. So Karna was eliminated. He was not allowed to shoot. He was always very angry about that. And Duryodhana, he was angry. And then Arjuna won the contest. So he took Draupadi back to the camp. Now, the reason it became interesting because at that time they were hiding in a disguise as Brahmanas. They had escaped from the house of lacquer at Varnavata, and now Arjuna had won Draupadi's hand in the contest, but he was dressed like a Brahmin. So they thought he was just as a Brahmin. And so when he went back to where they were staying in Ekachakra, in different places. So the brothers came back and they said to Kunti was with them. Kunti is the mother of the 5 Pandavas. She also happens to be the mother of Karna as well. But anyway, they came back with Draupadi and they announced to Mother Kunti, wait till you see what Arjuna has gotten for alms today. Because he would, as a Brahmin, they would go out and collect alms, a few some spinach, some rice, some dal, some fruit. And they bring it back and they would. So she said, Mother, without looking, she said, whatever it is, divide it equally amongst all of you. And everyone was shocked. What did she just say? And they said, Mother, you just said that we should distribute equally what he earned for alms day. But look, and then she looked, she said, oh, it's a woman. I didn't know it was a woman. Then she and Yudhishthira were trying to figure out what to do. And it was decided that she had never told anything untrue. Whatever she said had to happen. So she couldn't, there's no question of retracting the statement. It was going to happen. So there was a long discussion. Finally, Vyasadeva, the great sage who was connected with the family, he came and explained, it's destined to happen like this. She was destined to have 5 husbands. In her previous life, she was worshiping Lord Shiva to get a husband. And she was so adamant, she requested fervently 5 times, I must have a husband, I must. So Lord Shiva promised her that in your next life, you'll get 5 very competent husbands. That's the background. So finally, the Pandavas went back, established themselves as the rightful heirs to the throne and their virtue. And then there was a dice match where Duryodhana and Uncle Shakuni arranged a cheating dice match in which they would lose everything and lose it to Duryodhana Company. That's what happened. Yudhishthira was not a good gambler. He was not a good dice player. And Shakuni had a magical pair of dice made of his father's bones. So whatever number he wanted to come up, it would come up. No way to, and it was arranged that he would throw the dice for Duryodhana. And if Krishna had been there, that wouldn't have been a problem, because Krishna, also expert in dice, he would have defeated him very easily. But Krishna was back in Dwarka because there was an attack while he was away by Shalva. And Krishna had to go back and defend the city. So finally, after they won the kingdom away from Yudhishthira and the Pandavas, they also, to insult them, they said, well, you can put yourself to stake. The Yudhishthira was putting himself to stake, and his brothers and his wife. They all lost. So now, according to the bet, the wager, they were now under the control of Duryodhana. The Duryodhana, being an evil-minded person, immediately thought of revenge against the Pandavas and Draupadi. And so they thought Duryodhana had the idea of disrobing her publicly, which is the most unthinkable insult for a chaste woman. So Krishna saved the day by supplying unlimited cloth. You all know the story. The Dushasana, brother Duryodhana, he was trying to pull the sari off, and Krishna was supplying unlimited, so he couldn't do it. But then they made one more condition in the gambling, that if you lose this time, the loser must go to the forest in exile for 12 years. And then after 12 years, must have been the last year, incognito. If he or any of the 6 are discovered before that 13th year is over, then they have to go back again for another 12 or 13 years. So Yudhisthira accepted it. And they all went out. But they promised to be back. And they promised that if you don't return our rightful claim to the kingdom, then there'll be a fight. So anyway, 12 years passed in exile, 13th year passed, and they were not detected by the other side. So now it was time for Duryodhana to give back, as he promised he would, their half of the kingdom. He said, I will not give them as much land as is needed to put the head of a pin. They won't get that much land from me. Then Krishna said to the Pandavas, prepare for war. That's it. There's no more discussion. So both sides came to the battlefield, and Arjuna was the leading warrior for the side of Pandu, and Krishna was his driver, his chariot driver. You can see on the cover, this is Krishna holding the flute. No, excuse me, holding the reins. And the concho, that's not the flute, that's the concho. And they blow the conchos, Kshatriyas blow the conchos when the battle is about to begin. That means, here we come. And so they had blown their conchos. And Arjuna was about to begin the shooting, in the fighting. But then he said, Krishna, draw my chariot between the 2 armies. Let me see who has come here to fight, wishing to please the evil-minded son of Dhritarashtra. Krishna did as he was ordered, brought the chariot up and said, just see, fathers, grandfathers, your teachers, your brothers, your uncles, your brother-in-law, what? He described everyone. And Arjuna was so compassionate, he didn't see how he could carry out the battle. Not that he was afraid. He knew he wouldn't be defeated. He had never been defeated. But he didn't want to kill them all. And that was his dilemma. So he said, Krishna, I can't do this. And Krishna began to speak. First, a little back and forth discussion where Arjuna would give his idea. I can't do this. I don't care about the kingdom. I don't care about revenge. I don't want to do something more sinful to make up for something else they did sinful. 2 wrongs don't make it right. That was what he was thinking. And Krishna was speaking, and Arjuna was saying, no, it's not like that, Krishna. They were having a little discussion, but it wasn't getting anywhere. And Arjuna's time was running out because the other side was just waiting for the battle to begin. So finally, Arjuna said, Shishasteham Shadimam Tvam Prapanam. He said, now I accept you as my spiritual master. Now I won't argue with it. Whatever you say, I'll do. And Krishna began to instruct him, beginning with, you're not the body. None of us are these bodies. We're the spirit soul. The body's made of matter. It's not alive. And the soul is eternal. Ajo nitya shashvatoyam parane, hanyamane hanye sharire. Soul is never born, never dies, indestructible. One who is slain is not slain. the body slain, but not the soul. Then he explained about if one is acting in devotional service, then he's not responsible for the activities. There's no karma. He explained about karma. Every activity that one performs, there's a reaction, good, bad, or transcendental. Krishna explained that he was describing what Arjuna was saying before, what he thought was good karma. But Krishna explained, your so-called good karma is not taking into consideration that you're a Kshatriya. And these are wrongdoers. They've committed treachery, so many sinful acts. And you're the government. It's your duty to chastise them, correct them. So the discussion went on, and simultaneously Krishna was trying to convince Arjuna, but he was explaining the whole science of everything. Bhagavad Gita is actually the science of everything, because it describes where everything comes from, where the material world comes from, where the spiritual world comes from, who is Krishna, who are the living entities, what is spirit, what is matter, what is right, what is wrong, what is karma. All these things are discussed, and ultimately he comes up with the conclusion that bhakti yoga, bhakti means love and devotion. Everyone's eternal duty is to serve and love Krishna, love God. And then Arjuna said, can you show me your universal form? Because he knew that Krishna was God, but others didn't know. So to make it clear who Krishna was, he has to see his universal form. And Krishna showed his universal form. And then he finally became convinced, Arjuna, at this time. And Krishna said, have you heard what I've instructed carefully? Are your doubts now gone? Are you ready to act? And Arjuna said, Nashtamo smritir labdha. My remembrance has come back now by your mercy. Karishe vachanam tava. And I'm ready to carry out your orders. And so Krishna told him he should do this duty. So now the end of the Bhagavad Gita is here, where Sanjaya, who's one of the assistants of charioteer or one of the secretaries of Dhritarashtra, who's blind from birth. But Sanjaya was not only not blind, but he was a disciple of Vyasadeva, the great sage, and by the grace of Vyasadeva, he was able to see what was going on in the battlefield, everything, and even know what everyone was thinking. So he was explaining to Dhritarashtra what was going on. He told him everything. And his conclusion is, this is Sanjaya speaking. He says, thus I have heard the conversation. Oh, we read that. The last verse is, wherever there is Krishna, the master of all mystics, and wherever there is Arjuna, the supreme archer, there will also certainly be opulence, victory, extraordinary power, and morality. That is my opinion. And Sanjaya is a great personality. So this is the conclusion, that when there is Krishna and there is Arjuna, Arjuna represents the perfect, pure devotee, then there cannot be any immorality. There cannot be any lack of power. There cannot be any lack of opulence. There cannot be anything immoral. So Krishna convinced Arjuna that he should go ahead and fight for the right cause. And so he did that. And it's famous. It was written 5,000 years ago. This happened 5,000 years ago. But still, it's famous all over the world. Why is it so famous? Because it's the perfect understanding of how we should do our duty in this world. It's not just for Arjuna's sake, it's for our sake. We should, as Krishna says, Manmana pavamad bhakto madhyaji mam namaskaru. Ami Vaishasi Sachim Te, Pratijane Priyosime. Always think of me. Remember, offer your homage unto me, become my devotee, and offer your homage unto me. Thus you will come to me without fail, because you're my very dear friend. So Krishna is teaching us that we're all supposed to remember him and serve him, become his devotee. That's the purpose of our life. As Arjuna had his mission to carry out this task, he was trained. He was the most highly trained warrior in the universe. He had the weapons given to him by Indra, by Shiva, sun god, fire god, all the different they all gave their weapons to Arjuna because of his being so virtuous and pious. They knew that he would use them properly to defend the right cause. And we all have our duty too. As Arjuna did, we're supposed to surrender to Krishna and give up everything else. Just become his servant. Therefore, Krishna says in the 66th verse here, Sarva dharman parichaja mamekam sharanam braja aham tvang sarva papebhyo mokshayishami mashaja. Abandon all varieties of occupations and surrender to me. I will deliver you from sinful reactions. Do not fear. And that is the highest principle of religion. Religion is given by God. It's not made up by man. If man tries to make up religion, it becomes a joke because he doesn't know. But God can make up and give the real religion. And this is the highest principle because he says, above all other dharmas or duties or so-called religion, surrendering to God is the highest. It's the foremost because it supersedes all the others. Anyone have any questions about these points?
So I did have a question, but it's concerning maybe some other topic.
Okay, let's stick on this topic for now. Yes.
So, why can't there be anything immoral when there's Krishna and Arjuna?
Because Krishna is supreme pure. It's like, can there be anything like darkness in the presence of the sun? If something put in front of the sun, there'll be no darkness. So Krishna is like the sun, but he's supremely pure. So apapa nothing can be contaminated or dark. He's the source of all the suns. Brahmano hi pratishtaham amritasya. He's even the source of the whole Brahman effulgence, which is the source of the light for the suns. So nothing can be impure in his presence. And especially he's there, Krishna's personally there, Arjuna is pure devotee, becomes simply nothing impure, because a devotee, pure devotee like Arjuna, he had no impure desires. He wasn't trying to get their kingdom by cheating or by lying or by anything. He didn't even want the kingdom. He said, let them have it, Krishna. He said, no, not possible. So yes, that's a good question. Why can there be no immorality? Because he's supremely pure. Just like even if you put some animal or a human pass, stool out in the sun, by contact with the sun's rays, it becomes freed from that impurity. And it mixes with the earth and you can grow again things from it. That's the power of the sun. So if the sun has that much power to purify practically everything, then what to speak of God?
So in the name of surrendering to Krishna, can somebody act very heinously? And
No, because it's not a free-for-all. One can serve Krishna in any way he likes. No. He can serve Krishna, but he has to do it in accordance with the stipulations that Krishna has given. Krishna and the devotees. He may have a desire, just like, for example, let's say someone wants to serve the president of this country. He likes this country, he likes the president, and he wants to serve. So he decides that he'll go out in order to serve the president of the company, of the country. He'll go out and burn down certain places that are not being kept up properly. So will the president be happy? He'll say, I didn't want there to be any filthy, unkempt houses in your country. So I burnt them down. Took a lot of effort to do that. I was hoping you'd be pleased. President, that's not the way to please me. In order to please the president, you have to know how to please him. Certainly, to know how to please God, one has to learn from the advanced devotees. They will show us how to please God, how to please Krishna. That's also a good question. Any other?
so
My understanding is that most of the presidents today are have a demoniac gene, or have
That may be. I just use that as an example. I didn't necessarily mean that one had to use it. But in principle, well, if you're trying to please someone who's in charge, someone who you hold in high esteem, your point is that maybe they're not in high esteem these days. That may be. But I was just using that as an example. Think of another example where someone's obviously very highly esteemed. You can't think of anyone.
I was going to say like a high-ranked priest, but even priests sometimes can.
Yeah, so that's a problem. But in the case of God, there's no chance of ever misbehavior. So we have to know who God is. That's a good point. We have to know before we begin serving whether this is God and what is God. Because I don't know what God is, I may be serving, like you said, I thought I was serving someone who was God. He said he was God. Or these people over here, they say he's God. He made some magic dust come out of his throat and he cured some person's cholera. He must be God. No, that's not the definition of God. That definition is given by Parasara Muni. Aishvaryasya samagrasya viryasya yashashashriya jnana vairagyasya shan bhag itingana. These 6 opulences, if you find them in full, one who has all strength, all beauty, all fame, all knowledge, all wisdom, and all renunciation, that's God. But that can only apply to Krishna by definition, and he showed just a little sample of his ability or his opulence, these 6 opulences when he came here on earth. You know the story, he lifted Govardhan Hill as a child. He lifted a mountain because Indra, the demigod of heaven, was raining down, trying to flood. So as an umbrella to protect the residents of Vrindavan, held up the mountain for 7 days. You have to be very strong to do that. Only God can do that. Anything you'd like to say?
In regards to 1866 of Bhagavad Gita, Sarvadhamam Prityaja, this aspect of surrender. But what if one has fear of surrendering? Or what if one is hesitant of surrendering? How does one overcome a fear of surrendering?
Well, there's so many great personalities who surrendered in the past. And they didn't suffer. They became glorious and happy and prosperous and virtuous. By surrendering to God, no one becomes, even if someone who surrenders to God is disrespected in public, that doesn't mean he's disrespected by God or by the persons in the spiritual world. In other words, if there's a gang of criminals, they may be upset if one of their members goes and submits himself to the law enforcement authorities. They may think he's a coward, he's a traitor, and they have so many names for him. But those actually virtuous, actually elevated personalities, they appreciate he did the right thing. So we can see there are so many great devotees. And that's given in Bhagavad Gita also. Arjuna says, Asito Devalo Vyasa, Sayam Chaiva Bhavishime. Vyasadev, Narad Muni, Asita, Devala, all these great personalities have declared that you are the supreme and surrendered to you. Not only that, but all the demigods have surrendered to Krishna. So all the great sages in the past, it says the seven Saptarishis and the Kumaras are surrendered to Krishna. They are great devotees. And even if in more recent times Jesus surrendered to God, that didn't make him lesser person. There's nothing to be afraid of because the soul doesn't die. So what's to be afraid of? Soul lives forever, and one who takes shelter of Krishna, Krishna protects him. He says, I'll protect you from all reactions. So that faith is required. It has to be a little bit of leap of faith. But our position is somewhat desperate. We don't really have such other good choices. If we don't surrender to Krishna, then we surrender to Maya. Maya means the material energy, the illusory force. And then she really makes fools of us. We have to go through these material bodies, birth after birth, then old age, disease, death, again, birth, old age, disease, death. We're thinking that I'm going to have a great time, I'm going to enjoy myself, my senses, but ultimately, a lot of suffering. And what's the climax? Climax is if you see a movie and at the end of the movie, everyone's lying dead on the stage, that's called a tragedy. And that's what happens in this material world. Everybody lies on stage, the bodies. But the good news is that the souls are never dying. And those who surrender to Krishna, they get the opportunity to go and associate with the Lord eternally in the spiritual world. That is worth striving for. We have to give up this body today or tomorrow. We know that. We can't, this body won't hold on forever. It's breaking down. Even if you have a good body, you can live 100 years. It's breaking down. So what to do after this body? When I give up the body, what happens? Most people don't know. They don't really know what happens. The modern scientific theory is that once you give up the body, there's no more life. It's just, that's it. Finished. But that's not what Krishna says. No. After giving up this body, you come back, he comes back to me. Janma karma chame divyam evam yo veti tatvata chakva deham punar janma naiti mamarta sarjana. One who knows my transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, upon giving up the body, come back and take another birth in the material world, but he comes to the spiritual world. Okay. So thank you very much. Did you, Monica, want to say something? Do you have something? You'd like to? Anyone like to give a little comment? You want to try?
I did have a question. You started to mention about leap of faith, and then you were speaking philosophically. I'm just wondering if our faith is bolstered by being realistic with, the temporary nature of our
Being what?
being realistic with, our situation. If that helps us be faithful.
Yes, it does. To understand the situation that we're in, the predicament we're in, where there is no happiness in the material world. We're thinking it's happiness, but what we're thinking is happiness is actually a temporary lull in the suffering. It's like a person who, formerly they had this type of punishment, that a wrongdoer would be punished. He'd be strapped to a chair or something, and it had a long stick on it. So then, at the order of the government man, he pulls the stick down, and the man's head goes underwater. The punished. So he's almost drowned. He can't breathe. Just a few seconds before, he pulls him up again. He gasps for air. And he thinks while he's gasping for the air, this is wonderful. This is bliss. I'm out of the water, and then they put him down again. So this is the pleasure that we're experiencing in the material world. We think it's pleasure, but it's actually just a momentary lull in the suffering. If someone gives you a pair of shoes 4 sizes too small, and you put your shoes in them and you're wearing them, your feet are going to be suffering, so you're going to feel so much pain. Then, if at the end of the day you get to take off those shoes, that's the most blissful time of your day. But it's not so blissful, it's just getting the pain to stop for a few seconds. So material life is not really, the so-called pleasure isn't really pleasure. We're just thinking it's pleasure. For example, a man who's on the desert and he's becoming hallucinatory, he's starting to hallucinate. He sees an oasis. He thinks it's a big, beautiful water, trees, and he becomes so happy because he was dying on the desert. He starts running and dancing even with his last little bit of energy because he thinks, I'm going to go and I'm going to swim in that water. I'm going to eat the fruits of those trees. He's running and running. His happiness, is it real happiness? Is that the type of happiness we want? That happiness, living in a hallucination, thinking I'm going to be so happy in a few minutes. That's what we're doing here. We're thinking, when I get this, I'll be fully happy. I'm happy now, but I'll be happier then. When I get that job, when I get that car, I get that much bank balance, whatever it may be. When our country when we get rid of the Ukrainians, we'll be happy, or when we get rid of this group wants to get rid of that group. When I just need to lose 20 more pounds and I'm going to be really happy. Then I'll be able to do everything, just be the way I should be. I'll get more pleasure. This is Maya, this is illusion. So we don't want to be deluded anymore. We've already been deluded for millions of lifetimes. We can't even remember all the lifetimes we've had. But they're there because the soul doesn't die and doesn't take birth. The people who theorized that the soul lives forever after it's born or after it's created are incorrect. Krishna, the Supreme Authority, says the soul is eternal. That means his soul too. Everyone's soul is eternal. We're part, Mamabang so jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatana. We're the eternal parts and parcels of Krishna, the Spirit. And we're eternal. No birth. Because if there were birth, then how would it be that one gets born with a situation where he doesn't use his abilities for understanding God? If he turns away from God, that would mean God made the mistake of creating some souls so they won't surrender to God. Doesn't make any sense. But the way it actually is, souls are eternal and they have free will. They can choose to surrender to God or not. And if they choose to surrender to God, Krishna, then they live in the spiritual world perpetually. They don't have to come here to this Dukkhalayam Shashvatam, this place of misery. They can live there all the time. Thank you for all your nice attention. What's next?
Yeah. So there'll be the arti, which happens at 7. Until then, maybe we can do a little kirtan.
That'd be nice. You or anyone you like, chant. So we're ready to chant now. Kirtan. Krishna says that Satatam Kirtiyantamam Sandascha Dridrita, always chanting my glories. endeavoring with great energy. My devotees are always engaged in my devotional service. So chanting is an important way.
I'm not dressed properly.
Wherever you select, can chant.
We can do. Namayom Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Iti Namine.
Oh, Vishnu Padaya, Krishna. You can get prasadam from the guest. Have one of your boys help you get it. Show them how to get prasadam from the guest. Namaste.
Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavari Pasacharisha Charine.
Namaste. Saraswati Devi. Gauravani. Pracharine. Nirvishesha. Dunyavari. Asajadesha. Karneri.
Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaur Bhaktavrinda.
Hare Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaur Bhaktavrinda.
Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaura Bhaktavrinda.
Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Radha Shivasari Gaur Bhaktavrinda.
Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaura Bhaktavrinda.
Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Radha Shivasari Gaur Bhaktavrinda.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Krishna Krishna Hare
Hare Rama Rama, Hare Hare,
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna,
Hare Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare
Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare
Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare
Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna. Kiba Jai Jai.